Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Tare Zameen Par, I would like to, head of Tare Zameen Par, Dinesh Balgandi, would like to welcome you on this wonderful session. In fact, this session is very close to my heart. We have been doing several sessions. This is our 11th session and very close to my heart. And we have two wonderful people here. Major Sidlingaya, who's going to do opening remarks. And he's a senior case officer working as a commissioner of education in Northwest Karnataka. And originally, basically, he's from a village called Maknapur. He understands how the rural education works. And he's striving to improve the quality of education. Hats off to his efforts. And in the schooling, he has done, primary schooling, he has done it in Kannada medium from a primary school in Maknapur in Bijapur district. And we together studied in the same school, which is Sainik School, Bijapur. And of course, as senior to him, and he has earned a great name in Karnataka. So he's going to be doing the opening remarks. Before I do that, I'm a big fan of Srijan Singh, who's here. I keep watching him on social media, various TV channels. I think most of your readings are busy and are debating on various topics. Nice to see you. Srijan Singh is an author, public speaker, education innovator, and a social entrepreneur. And he's a gold medalist from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. And currently, he's a CEO and a co-founder of APJ Abdul Kalam Center, a non-profit organization working towards integrating the missions across the multiple dimensions in an effort to continue visions of Dr. Kalam. And I have been watching him. I had an opportunity to work closely with him on a project called Barefoot IT in Karnataka. He did a wonderful job and very interesting. I'd like him to touch upon a few points on that. But he, after his graduation, post graduation from IIM Ahmedabad, he had an opportunity to work with Boston Consulting Group, BCG Group, and then he became a special officer to 11th President of India, none other than Dr. Kalam. In fact, Tare Zameen Par today, our ethos, all our goals are built on visions of Dr. Kalam. The Pura concept, we are going to rural area, educating kids and exciting kids in rural area about science. That's what we've been doing. We've reached 8 lakh students so far, and it is really nice to have you here, Mr. Srijan. And later, Srijan Singh ji has got associated with ISRO, and he had an opportunity to work with Dr. Kalam on the Pura concept, providing urban amenities in the rural area. He was the key man behind that, and he was with him. I think if I'm not wrong, you used to stay with him in.
That's Rajaji Park.
Yeah, and such a great opportunity you had, sir, really. And when during his last day, when he was delivering a lecture in the Northeast, he was with him, and so such a close association he has had with Dr. Kalam. And we will have questions related to today's sessions, but we will not only limit our questions to science, but we will also have a few questions related to his experience with Dr. Kalam. Of course, that would be great to listen from you. And here we go. I mean, there is a lot to be talked. Like he has authored many books, around 15 books he has authored, and around I think 15 books he has authored, co-authored with Dr. Kalam. And these books have been sold, like 4 lakh copies have been sold in 12 different languages. And we are very happy to have you here, sir. And I think it would be a great value for all our teachers here. And more than 7,000 teachers have registered for this program. Some of them might be watching the recorded one, which will be uploaded on YouTube and Facebook and various other social medias. With your permission, we are recording it. And
No problem.
go to your major sibling, sir. I would like you to do opening remark and inaugurate this.
Good evening, everyone. I say heartiest greetings to everybody on this platform today. It's such a pleasure to be part of this program and speak to so many teachers who are transforming lives of hundreds, thousands of children across this country, across the state. Transformation reminds me of Nelson Mandela's statement on education. He says, education is a potent tool which can transform the world. Yes, India is probably one of the largest, populous countries, second largest populous country. We have almost, as per the statistics, we'll have almost 36.70 crore children in schools and another 30 crores in colleges in 2021. So keeping such statistics at the back of our mind, education is something, if it is provided in its right spirit, earnest, definitely India can transform to great futures. Right now, I am working as Additional Commissioner Public Instruction. I am looking after supervising primary and secondary education in northwestern part of Karnataka, that is the Belgaum division, spanning to 7 districts and around 18,000 schools. It has been a very rich and rewarding and satisfying experience for me since last 2.5 years. I very sincerely thank the government and the minister and my senior officers for reposing a lot of faith and trust in me since last such a long span. Otherwise, I generally do not spend more than a year in my postings. Last 10 years, I have seen almost 10 postings. Yes, this tenure has been very exhilarating and very rich. I have been visiting hundreds of schools. I've been talking to teachers. I've been talking to parents, talking to the officers who are running this department, all the stakeholders. I am in touch with them. And what I understand is there is immense scope of development, immense scope of progressing with whatever we have right now. Why should we talk about science? Why should we talk about mathematics? So they are very, very key components of personality building. Key components which build the will nourish the brain and the mentality of a child. If they instill the values of logic, reasoning, a child grows up to become a rational individual. Science and mathematics are these two subjects which can transform a child into a pillar for this nation. Probably, I'm sure you'll all agree. You'll all agree. And Srijan Singh sir is here, and with whatever the great association he had with our scientist president. Yes, see, one child from Rameshwaram, he learned right things. Probably his teachers, were benevolent. They gave him the right kind of education, right kind of the spirit, right kind of questioning, attitude, and he grew on to become one of the greatest scientists the country has ever seen. Yes, if these subjects are taught rightly, if these subjects are taught correctly in the way they are to be taught, definitely it will transform the kind of thinking that we have in the country. Otherwise, we are all, we all know, I'm sure every day, we come across numerous incidents wherein not a correct logic, an irrational attitude has divided the country in bits and pieces. We are divided over borders, we are divided languages, we are divided over caste, creed, and also so many divisive factors. If a child, if is able to rise beyond this, he can only rise beyond only if he has got competence to think, and that competence can be given by the teacher. Why should we, India really requires right kind of temperament, right kind of training in science, training in mathematics. The reason is whatever we have today, we have great institutions, and we have almost 1.4 million schools in states for primary education, and we have got another 30,000 higher educational institutions, with hundreds of universities, regulating them. So what are we producing out of such great education? See, if we talk about, there is a simple parameter of valuing or measuring the country's abilities in science and research. See, there is one simple parameter which calculates number of patents per million. Japan is such a small country with such few resources. Their number of research per every million population is 27,600. And where do you stand? We are not even 70. It is just 67. We have hundreds of people who are going to education, doing higher education, and none of them are interested in pursuing greater research because of various factors, because of lack of infrastructure, lack of opportunity, lack of incentives. See, that is the reason why science is suffering in India. And I must thank the science and technology, the promotion scheme the government is heading, and in which my senior from Sainik School, Dinesh Badgati sir, is an active partner. He is taking science across the state. He has got two vehicles in which he has named them as Tare Jameen Par, and he takes introduces children to astronomy. What a great feat! This is the kind of temperament, this is the kind of training, this is the kind of inculcation of scientific temperament we must provide to our children. So it's only then we'll be able to dream of a better future for the children. So they have got otherwise we are a very, very traditional and closed mindset society. We believe in too many superstitions, aren't we? We don't cross the road if there is a cat which has just crossed. We just wait. This comes to our mind. We see such small superstitions. Maybe they do not hinder the growth of this country, but they hinder our thinking. They restrain. They do not allow our children to grow out of those mindset. So it's a great responsibility. We have got eminent teachers, scholars in schools, colleges. They must make it, take this as an experiment. They're all doing great service. I visit hundreds of schools having excellent teachers, giving wonderful education. But we need to grow out of this mold. We need to inculcate that spirit of experimentation, spirit of finding the truth. We must allow our children to take more questions. I visit hundreds of schools. What I see, teacher delivers a science lecture. How does he do it? In majority of the schools in which I have visited, where the science was taught out of reading from the text. Is it the way science has to be taught? Science has to be taught out of experimentation. Science has to be, teacher has to only be a facilitator. He has to make children learn science from by doing things, by experimenting, by doing themselves. That is how children will have interest towards science. They will understand the basics of science, and probably they will have interest, and then they will probably channelize their energies into doing taking up higher education in research. So it is in this way we have to fashion our thinking, fashion our philosophies, fashion our education system. And very recently, the government of India has come out with a new education policy, which is come out with number of reforms, in addressing most of these issues. I'm sure in the right spirit, if it is implemented, and finally, whatever the policies, whatever the schemes, all laws, regulations, you talk of 100 things. Finally, I believe it is the teacher who is going to make the difference in the classrooms. It is a teacher on whom the entire learning rests. And probably therefore we revere our teachers like Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwar. In fact, I must know, I do not know whether it will be out of context. One of my teachers fell ill. And suddenly, we are a group of almost 100 children from the same class. There was so much of discussion in WhatsApp. So and so our teacher has fallen ill, and we must look after him. And I'll tell you, within probably a span of week, we collected almost 1 lakh rupees for him. And I am sure many of our seniors also did it, and it was we copied them. See, that is the kind of affiliation, that is the kind of reverence we have towards our teachers, because it is these teachers who can make the difference to learning, or difference to the schools, difference to understanding science, difference to and mathematics. And that is how we have to take our education forward. And I am so glad that in today's I have been Dinesh Bargandi sir asked me to be part of this program, and in which someone like Srijan Singh sir is participating. And I'm so glad I've been able to speak my heart out to hundreds and thousands of teachers in today's function program. I wish to tell you this. Please take this word home, and please tell all the teachers. And it is only out of teaching correct science and mathematics we can grow into a strong nation. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Very nice words, very motivating words, and great opening remarks. And this is an example from him. And I just gave a notice of like half an hour for you, and you did a fantastic job, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Let me set the platform for today's discussion. Teachers here, sir was talking about how important is a teacher, right? But today's discussion is like, we are going to talk about how relevant is a teacher today. But there are few very critical topics we are going to touch upon. Can robot replace teacher? I recently saw an article, read an article, and a robot with artificial intelligence, wrote an article. It's a fantastic article. I read that article about environment and all that. And you can't make out that it is written by a robot. Is that something danger for all of us? See, we have seen how cameras have got phased out. You have seen Kodak rolls, right? Kodak rolls were like, boom in the market, and suddenly they are gone out of the market because of the digital cameras that came in. And you know what? You are getting a competitor from unknown corners. And teachers, be alert. There is a competition hitting you from some unknown corner. You might be only competing with your own peers, with your own set of teachers around you, but there is a big competition hitting you. So this is a platform we are going to discuss about the 21st century opportunities and challenges, and the knowledge society, how it's going to be. Over to Mr. Srijan Singh, sir. Thank you.
I'm very happy to meet Sabse Pehle Dinesh ji, because I think you're doing a fabulous job. That is such a fantastic idea which you have. I remember you were talking about it when you were starting it. I'm absolutely thrilled to see that you have done 11 such lectures. So now you have a full cricket team with you of lectures. So that's wonderful. You've done a great job. And yes, I've known you for a very, very long time, since you probably were industry side of things when we started with Barefoot IT. Barefoot IT, since you mentioned it, something I should talk about it. It was something which we did so that IT-based services and IT-based education and healthcare could reach the common man. And that was done almost, about 8 years ago or something like that is when we did that.
Around 7 years back, yes.
It's been a whole while. Yeah. 7 years ago, and India has moved. And this is also an example of what Barefoot IT should have achieved. So, you got the whole, I'm seeing the Zoom room is full, and people are now being directed to the YouTube channel. And that's exactly how we should do. And we are all sitting in different places. Also greet Major Siddhalangaji, who's heading the education side, I think it's fabulous to see that a person from the uniform in the armed forces who served the nation for such a long time is now continuing to serve the nation in the role of being an administrator of teaching. And when I was listening to him, I could see a teacher in him. You know, there's a teacher inside him. And the way he was explaining, I could also sense his concern and his hopes and his aspirations for all the teaching system. And the beautiful poster behind him says everything, you know, that those two school-going kids which were there. Dinesh ji, you run this initiative called Tare Zameen Par, for which I congratulate you. I remember when your name Tare Zameen Par is very significant. Tare means stars. And stars on the ground means children who can become stars. And it reminds me of a beautiful verse from written by Noshu. And it says, when you wish upon a star, it does not matter who you are. So when you wish upon a star, it does not matter who you are. Anything which your heart desires will come to you. We want our teachers. You know, I understand most of you, thousands of teachers have assembled today. And I want to tell you, there is only one person who can make these stars on our ground truly shine. That is a teacher. We are all going through a coronavirus pandemic. We all are aware of it. Sometimes we talk about our healthcare frontline workers who are absolute heroes. You know, and different people we say heroes. Sometimes we tend to discount the heroes in teachers. I know some of you teachers are struggling with their students using WhatsApp as a delivery tool, or using this kind of platform like Zoom or several other platforms which you have. Sometimes internet is not available. Sometimes it is difficult to manage and monitor the children. It's a new setup. It's difficult to keep their attention. And I know that you are all innovating. And I want to tell you something very clearly. And amongst all the heroes with this pandemic, teachers are also our heroes. Because you have ensured that with whatever difficulty we face, with whatever lack of resources we face, we were not trained into delivering education by IT. You have been able to completely transform this entire delivery mechanism in a matter of few weeks or few months. And you're doing your best to ensure that the value of learning, that the train of learning does not stop. And for that, you deserve not only my and our collective congratulation, but also our collective gratitude. Hats off to all of you. When I talk about teachers, there's so many teachers who have changed my life. And nobody has changed my life more than this teacher, right here. I want to tell you a small little story before I get into the science part of this lecture. I was a student in 2008 in IIM Ahmedabad. I was in second year. In the month of these months only, September, October, November, Dr. Kalam came to teach us a course. In that course, he asked a question to all the students. And that question was, what will you be remembered for? What will you be remembered for? And all of us wrote like good students. We are good students. We wrote an answer and we submitted to him like an assignment. And then in 2009, I started working with him. And then I realized that this question he asks everywhere, wherever he goes, meets young people, he says, write it on a piece of paper, what I will be remembered for. Now, these were his students. As a student, you meet him once or twice. I was staying in the same home. I was traveling with him every day. And he used to ask me this question again and again, the same question, what I will be remembered for. I used to tell him an answer, and then he will say, oh, last time you told me this answer, tell me something more evolved. And an evolution. It went on for a few months and months and months, and then almost a whole year passed. And then I had no new answer to give him. So I did what is practical. So I said, okay, you keep asking me what I will be remembered for. Why don't you tell me what you would like to be remembered for? And because I went through the CAT process, I said, so I'll give you 4 or 5 options. Okay. So I'll give you, do you want to be remembered as a missile man? Do you want to be remembered as a space scientist? Because you did 1980 satellite launch vehicle? Do you want to be remembered as a nuclear man because he did the Pokhran? Do you want to be remembered as a people's president? 4 options, good options. I thought good options. Missile man, spaceman, nuclear man, and then people's president. So I said, pick your option, A, B, C, or D. So he said, oh, you young fellow, you have got all your options wrong. There's a hidden option, fifth option. And that fifth option, E option, is I want to be remembered as a, you can guess it. If this was a hall, you would have collectively said teacher. He wanted to be remembered as a teacher. And that is what he thought would be his lasting legacy to the world, to the nation, to the society. And when Dinesh ji were mentioning that 27 July 2015, when he passed away, and I was there, and I used to take that course together with him in IIM Shillong. And when life departed him, of course, great people do not die. They convert from humans to ideas. And that's why we are all here. That's why you have Kalam written right behind you, Dinesh ji, and so many of us adore him so much. On that day, in that moment, I thought that I got to know Dr. Kalam. My first introduction to him was a teacher in 2008 in IIM Ahmedabad, one side of India. And my last day with Dr. Kalam, my last moment with him as a mortal form was when I saw him as a teacher in another side of India, Shillong, in another IIM Shillong, and he remained to be a teacher. So I want to tell you, all you thousands of teachers who have joined us, is that the greatest president we had, the greatest scientist we had, one of the most prolific, multi-dimensional spiritual scientist, saint we ever had in this country, identified him as himself as a teacher. And you are a teacher. So I think if you're a teacher today, there's great honor in being a teacher, because you carry the real burden of the future of this nation. Now, I know there are difficulties. There's some questions have already come in. It's not easy being a teacher. Sometimes it's very difficult for an ordinary person to think that what is so difficult in being a teacher, because none of us have been formal teachers. Most of us have not. But if teaching 2 kids in your home or 3 kids in your home is so difficult, imagine how handling 300 kids would be. Doing it over and over again. Teachers have one of the most difficult working hours compared with any other job. You know, those early morning slots. Who else does it? Teachers do it. It's not easy being a teacher. It's the whole imperative that a teacher has to link with somebody who is 8 years old or 10 years old is not easy. Sometimes you tend to ignore it. But I tell you one thing, future of this country, the new India, is going to be built by you. You are the soldiers against ignorance. You are the soldiers against illiteracy. But more importantly, you are the soldiers against hate. You are the soldiers against divisions. You are the soldiers who will upload and uplift the spirit of this nation. You are the broader nationalism this country needs. When that comes through science and technologies, we can discuss it throughout this lecture. But you are, regardless of whether you're teaching science, I'm sure there are thousands of you here, not everybody is teaching science, that's fine. Because science, as Dr. Kalam said, needs a direction. And that direction comes from spirituality, comes from positive orientation, comes from good thoughts. So regardless of what you teach, remember, and I'm sure you know, that the child is observing you and is copying you. Dinesh ji, you said that, can robots replace teachers? They can't. For the simple reason that the human mind does not learn by what is said, but by what is shown in action. Children adopt this, no, they will do not what you say, but what you do. And when a teacher stands in class, more than what you write on the blackboard, it's how you write on the blackboard and how you behave in the class and what words you use in the galleries and the aisles. All those things are copied by children, and you know that. And that's why robots can't replace teachers, because robots can only teach robots. And if robots start teaching humans, then humans will become robots. Robots can write great articles, play good chess, calculate faster than humans can, but robots cannot cannot handle emotions, cannot build emotional intelligence, cannot give positive values. Robots will tell you the sum of anything, the division between two numbers, but it will not tell you compassion. It will not teach you kindness. It will not teach you positive values. It will not teach you sacrifice. Mathematically, sacrifice makes no sense. We have an armed forces officer here who will tell you what is the value of a sacrifice. A robot will not make a sacrifice. Unless you program it, it will always make sacrifice. So the issue is that robots are not going to replace humans. And teaching is the last thing robots can do. Yes, they can do online education where you will teach something and people will learn. But this is temporary. And this virus, as you all know, will eventually go. And schools will flourish. Your role will be bigger and not lesser. We are talking about science a bit. So the next 4-5 minutes, I want to tell you about science. And then Dinesh ji, my good friend from almost a decade, has told me that there are many questions. So, and some of them I can see online right here. And Dinesh ji, my request is that there are a lot of people, I suppose, on YouTube. If they comment on YouTube, maybe someone from your team can also pick up them so that they don't feel left out.
Yeah, I'll just interrupt. The format of today's program, all the audience is slightly different, and we want to utilize Srijan Palji's time very efficiently, asking him the questions that we have. And we have already got around 20 questions from various corners of Karnataka, always no, even from outside Karnataka also. And I would like to encourage more questions. I think, if you have questions, just raise your hand and we'll be unmuted, and you can ask the question directly.
We'll do that, Dinesh ji, and I'll finish off in 2 minutes because I'm here to also tell a bit about science, and then we'll go on to the questions. I know we should get into that. See, as we speak, we feel that the world is going through a pandemic and you have so much trouble, you have to wear a mask outside and there's no, seems like hopeless. But let me tell you that even in this situation, which happens once in 100 years, every time, just that we were in the wrong side of the 100 years, it is the first time that humans are able to use science in the most efficient manner. The vaccine, which we're trying to develop, for example, the coronavirus vaccine, if you're following it, it is well on its way. There are predictions which say that it will happen in November, some will say December, some will say January or February. But no matter what it is, we are going to beat the record of making a vaccine, our own record, by years. It takes a decade to build a vaccine, and we're talking about building a vaccine in a year or slightly more than a year. There are medicines which are right on the cusp. We are already testing it on thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. Things like remdesivir, things like dexamethasone, and so many other things, which are for the first time being tested on humans. And they are bringing out successful results. So science is a wonderful tool today, which is well on its way to solve the greatest crisis we will face in our lifetime. And even despite all this, and I want to tell you one last thing, because this is closest to my heart, and you are Tare Zameen, but as we speak, in the month of July, towards the end, despite everything which was going wrong, humans sent something called the Perseverance rover to Mars. That's on its way. It's almost about 20% already completed and 80% more to complete. And by February next year, Perseverance rover will land on Mars. I want to tell you something brilliant about that. Perseverance rover has a device which I had seen and it was shown to us. I do a lot of work on Mars. And one of the things which this team worked on is called a MOXIE in situ generator. MOXIE stands for Mars Carbon Dioxide to Oxygen Generator. And this little device, which is like a cylinder, it basically uses solar power or battery power to convert carbon dioxide, which is abundant on Mars, into oxygen. And we will be testing it next year on Mars. If that works, we are humans are well on our way, despite the pandemic, despite the crisis, we are well on our way to produce artificial oxygen or oxygen, natural oxygen to artificial devices on another planet. As we speak, 10 days ago, in the clouds of Venus, 50 kilometers up its surface, we found traces of a very important gas, which is only let out by life forms. So even despite all this, we are trying to discover life on Venus, which is very close now. Now Venus is, we used to think that Venus, nobody can live because it's too hot. And now they're saying that there is chance that there's something already alive right there. And then we're talking about inhabiting Mars by converting carbon dioxide into oxygen. Science is not suffering any kind of setback. It's just something, a pandemic is there and we will cure it. But you have to give it time. I think any science teacher out there, you must follow these news and you must tell these brilliant things which are happening in science to the children you are teaching. Because I think our children need hope. And that hope comes from the brilliant things which are happening around them, despite everything which is, well, it is uncomfortable, let's put it that way. It's not an easy pandemic. But we can still win and we will win. And that hope science will give you. Science is already doing a lot. And I suppose you all must adhere to the principle, what Dr. Kalam said, that, always have hope, have a high, big dream you should have. And you should have such dreams and you should inculcate such dreams, which dreams are which you don't see when you sleep. What dreams are those which don't let you sleep? So Dineshji, because we have so many questions, I think I'll cut short my lecturing, and I think a lot of our teachers might be having so many questions. So we'll love to take the questions. I'll try to keep it short answers because there's limited amount of time and we have a lot of questions. So I think you can take over the moderation and we can go ahead. Thank you for inviting me. And of course, towards the end, I would like to speak for 2 minutes more.
Sure. Thank you. So, we have several questions and still questions are coming in. So we will take a few questions from remotest part of Karnataka. One teacher, Mr. M.N. Patil, has asked a question. They are trying out the online education in this pandemic. So what if we'll see is, if this pandemic continues, or this has given an opportunity to test this online classes, and whether the school building itself is relevant in the 21st century, now post-COVID, especially post-COVID, how relevant is the building itself, the school building?
See, that's a very good question, and I've got two divergent answers to it. Mr. Patil, Mr. Patil, who asked the question?
Mr. Patil, M.N. Patil.
Mr. Patil, so it's a good question. I suppose you are a teacher. See, two things are going to happen. First, as I told you, why you need a school building is because you need a teacher and the students to be physically present together. Because as I said, children learn about 75% of the learning is by something which are called motor neurons. So you see movement, and children learn, especially the younger ones, learn by what you do. And simple example is, if a teacher does your hand like this, the students also do the hand like this, because the human brain learns by copying other humans. So for that, you need those physical spaces. But eventually what will also happen is, because everything is tending to go online, what may happen is that you may have shared schools. You may not have, at least when the recovery is going to happen, and the recovery will begin probably by the end of this year when schools will start opening. Maybe the schools will not open for all 6 days. They will open for a shorter week, maybe 3 days they'll go there, and 3 days it will be online. So the school buildings would be there, but you would probably not have so much of idle space, because you'll use a school building for 3 days for one batch, and then another batch will come for another 3 days. And the remaining 3 days, the first batch will learn by an online mode. But I don't see why any possible, and it'll be very sad if this happens, if the physical contact between a teacher and a student is completely snapped, because then the learning is very difficult. I have learned more from seeing Dr. than listening to him. I would see what he does. And even at that age, in my 20s, in my mid-20s, I was seeing him and I was observing him and I was copying what he was doing, right? So we always do that. Even adults do that. After all, we are apes, right? And that's how our DNA is. So I think the physical spaces will be there, but of course, some part of the physical spaces would obviously not be needed, and that would change a little bit. But it will not completely evaporate.
Thank you. And one teacher, Mr. Hanchapnavar, asking a question, which is, what are we getting our kids ready for? That's a very basic question.
No, it's not a basic question. It's a very, very deep question.
Very
deep question, and it's a brilliant question to ask, because it's very difficult to answer, to be honest. What are we preparing our children for? There is something called knowledge equation. Dr. Kalam invented it, so I'm just going to repeat it. He said, knowledge, you're getting knowledge. What is knowledge? He said knowledge is three things. Creativity. Okay, so people have to be creative. Second, but that's not enough. People have to be righteous. There has to be righteousness in the heart. The third thing he said was courage. Okay, so knowledge, whatever we are giving is knowledge, but knowledge has got three parts: creativity, righteousness in the heart, and courage. Okay. So we are preparing our kids for all these three things. As Dr. Kalam said, some of the things which we tend to ignore is that second part, righteousness in the heart. We think we're not preparing employable assets. We're preparing good citizens. We're not preparing people who can make who can be good resources for companies. That's not the part that is a consequence of education, but that's not the purpose of education. The purpose of education is to build great homes, great citizens, tolerant people, people who respect diversity, and build not just a great society, a great nation, a wonderful planet Earth. And that is why righteousness is important. The second component I told you. And the famous European Union speech, which Dr. Kalam gave, and world famous speech it was, where he said, righteousness is, when there is righteousness in the heart, there is beauty in the character. There is righteousness in the heart, there is beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there is harmony in the home. And when there is harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. And if there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world. If you want to have peace in the world, build righteousness in a classroom. You'll get peace in the world. That is our purpose. We have to build righteousness in the heart. We have to build beautiful character. We have to build harmonious homes. We have to build orderly nation, and we have to build a peaceful world. That is the purpose of education.
Yeah, great. I'd like to give an opportunity to Niranjan Behera, a live question, who is a participant here. Mr. Niranjan, all of you.
Good evening, Srijan sir. Sir, my question is, a great teacher makes complex subject easy and simple, and some teacher lack this because of poor interest. And sir, a teacher can make Dr. Kalam. Dr. Kalam is because of his teacher, and Srijan Singh is because of, and he is also student of Dr. Kalam. Sir, I just want to know why the today's generation teacher don't want to make like Dr. Kalam, their student as Dr. Kalam or a great personality. What's your view on it?
Srijan, I am not sure whether any teacher would not want their students to become a Dr. Kalam. Sometimes what happens, teachers are so overloaded with so many other things. There's so much of stress in their life, their own professional life, that it's difficult for them to focus so much on a single student. Sometimes the load is too much. Sometimes the number of students are so many. Sometimes they are assigned work which is not part of teaching at all. And that makes it difficult for a teacher to focus on the gems, the tare zameen par, right? I have always said that teachers should be only used for teaching. And if there's not enough, for example, there's summer vacations or winter vacations, I do it myself at Kalam Center. We do it, and I'm sure Tare Zameen Par is also doing it. And there we need to train new things. We don't do that. If we are not going to institutionally focus on helping teachers grow their own knowledge, how do we expect teachers to give good knowledge to children? So I think that is there. And the second thing, we need to honor teachers. Whenever Dr. Kalam, when he spoke, half of his speeches, he would always mention 2 or 3 teachers. He would mention how the brilliant teacher in class 5, Siva Subramaniam Iyer, taught him how birds fly and he wanted to be a pilot. That's how he became whatever he became. He would talk about Satish Dhawan, whose anniversary was, and he said how Satish Dhawan taught him. Boss was also his teacher, taught him so many things. How Vikram Sarabhai taught him so many things. He would talk about how the Pandit Lakshmanaman Shastri, he taught him so many things. He would talk about the Imam who taught him so many things. You have to value their teachers, and you have to build that culture. Sometimes what happens, Ranjan ji, is that somebody becomes successful and they get an award, they never mention their teachers. I think that culture is played a big role in whatever you are, whatever I am, Dinesh ji is, Major Saab is, and we need to see. That is why I've got a photo of my teacher behind me. Okay? All of you.
Okay, sir.
All the teachers
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Niranjan. I'd like to entertain, and encourage questions in Kannada also. I can translate that for.
You're mute.
Sorry. Well, thank you, Mr. Niranjan. I would like to entertain, encourage questions in Kannada also. If you can please, if you want to ask question in Kannada, most welcome. I can translate it for you. We have one question, which is how mathematics is relevant for a daily life, day-to-day life. Very good question. I think.
Very, very important question. And we all know it is relevant, but how do you teach it? That's the thing. So I think, mathematics is absolutely relevant from the time you wake up to the time you sleep, and even when you're sleeping. Everything is mathematics. Because mathematics is, as Einstein said, is the language in which God has written the universe. So the entire universe, cosmos is balanced by just one thing. That you add 2 plus 2 anywhere in this universe, it is 4. Anywhere you go in the universe, in our universe, it is 4. If it becomes 5 anywhere, it will not be our universe. The entire physics law would be useless. The world will collapse, the universe will collapse if mathematics does not hold. If you start your day from ensuring that your right feet goes in your right chappal and your left feet goes in your left chappal, so you have 2 chappals, right? Essentially of the same size, which is geometry. The number of chappals is your arithmetic. To the point where you get out of your bed, you do that. Start counting. The time when you see the clock, you see mathematics. You see how much time is left. That is subtraction. You calculate how much time you need to allot to different tasks you have. That is division, right? So from your day, beginning of the day, when you're driving, you see, okay, how fast should I go to reach my school in how much time and avoid getting challan. That is, again, mathematics of a different kind. Our mind is wired to do complex mathematics. When we were hunter and gatherers, long ago, 13,000 years ago, when all we did was hunting, gathering, we don't have geometry, but we had geometry in the mind. You knew at what angle you throw the spear to hit the animal which is running. You knew speed at which you had to hit a moving object. That is geometry. When we became farmers, we would count the seeds and we figure out these many seeds, this plant, this is the rate at which, distance at which you have to plant the seed. That was again mathematics. So we've always been mathematics. The first house you built was architects. That's all mathematics. So mathematics is everywhere. Now let me come to the actual problem. The actual problem is that we do not teach relevant mathematics. We teach 2 plus 2, but we don't tell where does it apply. We teach, when I was a student, I learned this thing called work and time. Rather not work and time. Yeah, work and time. And you had in which you would say there's a cistern in which is a tap and the tap is on and the cistern has a leakage and at what time will it fill? I never understood what was a cistern. I've never seen a bathtub till then. So I could not relate to it. The problem is we take anglicized problems. We take problems from the West and apply it to Indian minds. And we should have used Indian problems with Indian language. So if you have a Kannada student, you should talk of math in Kannada. Math is the only thing which is not a slave of any language at all. So why don't we teach math in a language, in objects which children understand? If you are teaching in a village and you know the children play marbles, then talk in marbles. Why do you have to talk in English words? Why do you have to talk in American version? System is good for them. I didn't know what is system. I had to look in dictionary what is system. So this is the problem. We make it boring by making it irrelevant. So it's almost a textbook. I know there's an educator, administrator here. I should not probably be saying this, but the syllabus itself has made mathematics boring. We should not. Children, sir, Major sir, you see so many children want to be soldiers. Why don't we talk about mathematics in a military language? A tank is going like this. A bullet is fired like this. Children will love it because they can imagine it. But we don't do that. I think we have to teach children the language which makes them interesting.
Can you unmute Major sir? Just a minute. Viresh, unmute Major sir.
Yes, sir.
Just accept that. You have to accept that. Unmute.
Yes, yes, yes. 1 second.
Yeah.
Mathematics is a wonderful subject. It teaches accuracy. It teaches predictability. It teaches how things happen. It trains the mind of a child. The way the whole mathematics is structured for around 10 years in the initial phase of schooling. Initially he is introduced to numbers. So he starts counting things. Then slowly he's, graduated to making small sums of additions, subtractions. Then he will be introduced to much bigger numbers, the fantasy and the fantasy world of multiplications and the divisions. And slowly he is then taken to decimals and fractions. So this is a very gradual phenomenon of training mind. Mathematics is, when I initially spoke, I spoke about these two subjects. One is science and another is mathematics. Mathematics is one subject which trains the mind of a child. Without mathematics, there is just no science. You cannot have science without mathematics. So that is the beauty of teaching mathematics to children. Once mathematics is taught to child, he becomes, it opens up, number of opportunities. It opens up the entire world to him. For otherwise, without mathematics, your abilities are completely limited. Like Srijan Paul sir was telling, like for a gatherer or a hunter, for 10,000 years ago, what were his abilities in life? He could not think much. So mathematics gives, in fact, wings to children. They can fly. They can start dreaming. That is the beauty of mathematics. So that is how these are subjects, science and mathematics, to be taught to children with a lot of passion. And Niranjan was asking a question. Why is that we do not have good teachers? A teacher has to equip himself every day. He has to read. He has to be a voracious reader. He has to update his knowledge. It is only then he will be able to be acceptable, be updated, be current. Then only children are very smart. I have two children. One is 12 years, another is 6 years. A 6-year child, he is far ahead of what I was in my own generation, was in my own age. The children are very smart. They will be able to make out like this. Who is a good teacher? Who is a not a good teacher? Who is the best teacher? Who is a teacher who has come to taught teachers? It is very difficult for a teacher to fool his children. They will read you in and out. Maybe because they are fearful, they don't open up. They will not be able to tell you anything in front. When you go out, they just talk to each other. That is the kind of generation we are training now. So teacher has to keep himself abreast of everything that happens around him. He has to see children are exposed to so much of cartoon characters, so much of channels. They are updated to so much of great entertainment. How do you hold their attention? You have to be much more interesting than those caricatures. It is only then you will be able to become a good teacher. I was fortunate, me and Dinesh Bargandi sir, we have same set of teachers who taught us. He graduated a few years, before me in school. It is, I am from a very, very small village. My village even, till now doesn't have even a high school. And today I am sitting as additional, the education commissioner for the entire Belgaum division, now part of North Karnataka. My journey has been fantastic. Whatever I have succeeded, whatever I have achieved, whatever scales I have achieved, I owe it all to my teachers. Some of the finest moments of my life in army. I have served in Dras, I have served in Kargil, I have fought with militants, I have scaled mountains at a height of almost 6,000 meters. I was right on bang on the border. And since then, life has been beautiful. I was qualified to be a radio officer in Merchant Navy. I joined army. I was lieutenant, I was captain, I commanded a company. Then I shifted to civil services. I served in number of departments. See, it is this way, the teacher imparts his knowledge, inspires his children. The role of a teacher can never be discounted. You are all great set of teachers. this pandemic is only a transient phenomena. I do not subscribe to the greater view. We'll have a lot of good teaching that will happen after another month or two. We'll have again children attending to school, and in fact I also feel very bad that our teachers and children are not able to meet regularly in schools. But I'm sure you will be great teachers to all our children in days to come.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, on a lighter note, even the mathematics is so important. Even uneducated MLA or MP will understand what is the majority, how many horses to be bought in. I think that is another topic Srijan sir is quite good at. I see him debating on this topic. Well, let's not deviate from there, but we have a few more very interesting questions. Srijan Palji, how many questions can we take? Do you have a hard stop at 7?
We should, yeah, maybe we can take 10 minutes more. We can have till 7. Maybe we can do that.
Okay.
4 minutes, whatever comes. I need last 2 minutes I need for something. So,
Oh, yeah, sure.
So
We will take a stop at
10 minutes
7.
we'll take questions, and then 2 minutes I need to just talk something.
All right, 7, 8 will stop. And
Right.
okay, so there are questions related to the new education policy, as well as there are a lot of people want to know the new education policy, as well as the current whatever the trend happening due to the pandemic, how we get student to listen, get that concentration to the class, and how to monitor them. These are the literal challenges, and some of the bullying is happening, and a lot of wrong things are also happening on the class. And how do we manage this? I think these are the two things that if you can touch upon.
I think you're absolutely right, because even I teach kids whenever some school invites me. And I do realize that there is a problem of holding focus because this is a very distractive device. Computers or mobile phones, even more distractive. I think mobile phones are designed to be distractive. It's how they are built. So children do get to get distracted, and also because it's hard to monitor them and all those issues come in. I think the only way out is what I tend to do is that try to use audio visuals. It does help. See, one extra tool which you have is the fact that now you can use you can use a video clip if you can. Learn those tricks. You can use a video clip. You can use something from the YouTube and you can podcast right here. If you're using Zoom, you have a way to screen share. You can do a screen sharing. You have to invest time building your content. Use PowerPoint, use whatever presentation which you want to build in whatever way, and use it on your screen. There's only one way. Today, if a child is not listening to you and looking left and right, it's difficult to sort of keep monitoring everyone. So the only thing which you as a teacher can do now is to make your content interesting and try to encourage more and more people to participate. The human mind usually used to tend focus after 18 minutes, the focus would go away. But when you are on a screen, scientifically, the focus goes away in about 5 minutes. It's very difficult to focus, and check yourself. You probably, all of you, the hundreds of you are there. Even as a teacher, you'll find it hard to focus for 5 minutes. Most people are unable to do that. And you're talking about children for whom anything is a distraction. So it's very important to hence keep engagement. Break your syllabus, whatever you're teaching, break it down into small pieces. Break it down into 5-minute nuggets. Give it a break in the middle. Ask people to question, keep monitoring, asking a question, appreciate, so that children are encouraged to be appreciated. There are certain little tools that you can give them, clap for them, or they can use the thumbs up tool on Zoom, do those kind of things, which does help and keep them motivated. And use as much as AV as you can, because especially like a break, a 1-minute AV and a 6-7 minute lecture, so that the children find a break away from it. Otherwise, they will lose focus. If you're going to talk for 40 minutes, that's not the human mind how it operates. So this is extremely important. So you have to change your style of delivery. In the classroom, it's easy because the children are there; they can't walk out. And when the mind tends to go away, you can always tell them, "No, listen, pay attention. You're not looking here, looking outside the window." You can't do that in an online environment. Use AV, keep it short, 5-minute nuggets. Give them something in the middle. Ask them to they can ask questions, they can raise hands, do thumbs up, do whatever visual signs you can do on this this tool itself. For example, you can do this, you can do this. You can ask children to do this. You can even laugh. So ask them to react. It's important for them to react. Okay. So once you do that, I think a lot of kids tend to respond better. And about the NEP, I think don't worry about it. All you need to know as a teacher is that you need to be updated on whatever you are teaching. As the Sab was telling, all you need to do is ensure that you read, you be good at whatever you're teaching, so that you know much more than the average person on the road knows about that particular subject which you're teaching. You should, if you're teaching science, you should read as much as you can about science. Thankfully, a lot of it is freely available, not a problem. If you're a mathematics teacher, you should innovate your ways. So just worry about that. You right now, you don't have to worry like a school administrator has to. As a teacher, you need to worry about ensuring that your ability is right at the top. Right? That's what you need to do.
Great. So we have Vinod Reddy here who would like to ask a question. Vinod Chetan Reddy.
Vinod, yes.
Are you there?
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
sir, I have a question. Sir, every child has different interest in towards subject, different interest towards subject. So how can I make children interest towards my subject? So how can I create interest towards my subject, sir?
Yeah, that's a good one. See, how does a child get interested in a subject? As a child, you get interested in a subject mostly because the teacher is interesting. Okay, that's how it is. If the teacher is interesting, teaches in a way which is interesting, children will get interested and hooked onto those subjects more than anything else. You change the teacher, the child will soon lose the interest. So you have to make it innovative. You have to make it interactive. You have to make it interesting. If you make it interesting, whatever you're teaching, if you're teaching history, you can make history very interesting. There's a teacher who showed me how he uses to teach history. If you're teaching mathematics, you can make it practical. If you're teaching science, well, you can do experimentation, as somebody was talking about. And experimentation can also be done without physically being present in a laboratory. There are enough experiments available online which you can do either in a simulated online environment, and they are freely available, or you can ask them to do those experiments at home and come up with the results. If a teacher is experimentative, if a teacher is expressive, if a teacher is a good communicator, and more than that, if a teacher is genuinely interested in making his or her subject interesting, most children would respond and they would get interested in your subject. But I'm glad that you're saying, how do I do that? Because you're trying to, you have this, desire to market subjects that your subject children like. And I like this fact in you because it shows that you want your children, the children you teach, to like what you teach. I think that's the step number one. You have the right intent. And now you have to back this right intent with the right content and maybe some innovation which you have to do in your teaching method, right?
All right. So I have, I think we can take two more questions. Mr. Anand Virji would like to ask a question. Mr. Anand.
Yeah. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask these questions, and good evening to you, sir. My observation is that this pandemic is going to end up very soon, but it has opened up a new way of education to the students. While the students are opening up online education system, there is a challenge for the parents to guide them. Parents have not gone through this online education system, and they don't know which site is better, which the website is good, which tool is good for their the kids. But they know that yes, they have to teach them the science and maths for the best opportunity in their career. So how do we plan, or is there anybody has thought through this to give a education for the parents at home? That is one. Secondly, make the the system available free of cost for the students in the village. They cannot afford to pay so much money for the internet charges. Is there any way that government can look into this? Sorry about this long question.
Yeah, you have to unmute.
I'll take a second question first, Anandji. I personally believe that the right to at least a decently speed and a decent quantity of data is the right of every child and every citizen, actually. So I've always advocated that data is a matter of right, and nobody is paying for data. It's like food now. It's like water. So So data should be a matter of right, and that's pretty much clear. And the other thing I wanted to, now coming to your second point, and I'm with you when you say that rural kids should not, or anybody should not be forced to pay for extra data charges. But the other thing is in terms of how do parents get trained into selecting the right online curriculum. Well, there's nothing, because perhaps we didn't see this pandemic coming the way it did, and the transition was, there was no transition. It was just, you're here and now you're somewhere else. The school is out and now you're online. I think the best way to do that would be to also make the teachers who were teaching and are still teaching those kids as a decision maker. A lot of teachers are best exposed, the teachers who are already teaching your kids would be able to recommend what exactly is best for your child. Remember that that teacher does not only know the education space, but he also or she also knows your child, and she can do that work for you in case you want to invest into something. The other thing which you need to look out if you're making that decision on your own is that who's teaching? Even in an online education format, who is teaching? And will that teaching course allow your child to ask questions? Because there's a lot of space available where there's tons of, you'll see advertisements on media, and there's a lot of money which is put behind to you. But who's teaching that course? And sometimes it's just silent about it. They'll put a photograph of somebody who's a big celebrity who has nothing to do with this course. And I mean, I'm not going to take names here, that's not the idea. But there are enough advertisements running in India now where they put somebody who's like a huge business leader or an icon like Steve Jobs, and they will put an ad of their, whatever content they have along with it. Steve Jobs is not going to teach your kid. He's obviously not alive, so he can't. So one has to be careful in asking the right question. Who's going to teach? And will your kid get a chance to question, do some kind of Q&A? Those are things which are extremely important. Classroom, you knew the kid can ask questions. Who's going to teach? That. The same decisions the same parameters you need to know for online education. Who's going to teach? Whether I get interaction or not, and what is the kind of content. And if you can't decide for yourself, use your existing teachers from schools to advise. Dineshji, last question, shall we?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take the last question. So there are plenty of questions. There is.
We can do this again sometime.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I just want to take their names. Jaydevi, we acknowledge your questions. Jaydevi ji, Jyoti, Saurabh Nargund, Rupa, and we have plenty of questions on the YouTube as well. Though I took some questions like Hazan Saab, Nadaf, Vijaya Das. See, I think some of these questions are related to how relevant is marks in education. And some of them are asking how we teach science on this online platform, especially when science is to be taught through experiments. How do we do that on the online system? And there are some questions related to NEP, but I think that's the last question. Thank you.
Let's take those two parts first. Are marks important? Well, it would be wrong if I say marks are not important, because unfortunately in our country, a lot of admissions depend on your marks. So marks are artificially created to be extremely important. So in the long run of life, marks do not matter. And that there is enough empirical evidence to suggest that people who dropped out of colleges made Facebooks, and people who completed colleges ended up working under those people. So marks really do not have an impact in the larger ambit of life. But then again, the idea sometimes it quickly slides from the fact that marks are unimportant and hence nobody should study. But that's not the case. I think marks are important. I wish we could create a better mechanism to evaluate those marks. Our marks are evaluated by rote learning. It's about getting one right answer and trying to. But in life, you and I and we all know that there is no one right answer. There are several ways to arrive at the right answer. There's no one right answer. There are solutions. It's an optimization of solutions, but we don't teach that. So really, the way we evaluate our papers has no correlation with how the world moves. But as far as we hear, and marks, let's acknowledge it, marks do matter in where you get admitted. And that may be a very important concern for children. But the problem is that we have found over time, there's been a shortcut to marks. There are those rote learning methods, there are those coaching center methods, and there's so many other methods, which are a shortcut to getting good marks. And the shortcut runs through, what it bypasses is basically this grounded knowledge of the subject. And then people suffer. So for instance, I'll give you an example. In my class 12th, and if you was teaching class 12 science, the last two chapters were relativity I mean, it was like 3 pages and 2 pages chapter, like 6-page relativity chapter, special theory, general theory. Now, it was so unimportant that nobody taught it and nobody read it. Because it's not fasega nahi, question nahi aayega. No question, no marks, useless. Okay. So everybody skipped it and nobody taught it. And then when you go later in life, you realize that the whole world, the universe is balanced by this theory of relativity. And it was so exciting. It's absolutely the most brilliant thing you can ever learn is the theory of relativity. If you have not learned it as a teacher, go and read it. It's the brilliant thing, I guarantee you that. You would be like flabbergasted. Hua kya? Like, that thing, wow, this also happens. But we skip it because it's not relevant to marks. It's a marks-less thing. We need to create differentiation in education. I hope NEP does that. It does talk about changing a lot of the marking scheme. I think, personally, I don't believe that marks out of 100 make any sense. There should be grades. And there should be multiple grades. And there should be a topper in every subject. There should be no class. There should be a first in every subject. Because see, Ramanujam was a failure in this education system. He failed. Professor Harding in UK to actually be identified as a mathematics star. Otherwise, in our system, Ramanujam would have been a failure. He failed in everything but mathematics. So we need to create a topper in every subject. Life is about specialization, not about generalization. So that's my take on this marks thing. And I think science thing is obviously covered in the past, that if you want to, there's enough experiment available online which you can do without physically being present in a laboratory. There are simulators present. Please have a look. It's all available in Google. A lot of it is free of charge. I know it's not as good as a laboratory, but then it's good, it's better than nothing. And then there are a lot of experiments which you can search online. I have written 2 books on it. And every chapter ends in an experiment which you can do at home and explain it. And you don't need anything. There's no investment. It's a 5 rupee investment and every child can do it. So we should actually look into those, and there are enough experiments which you can do. They're safe, available stuff. You can use milk, just food. You can use that to teach bacteria. An experiment is there. You need vinegar, you need milk, you need 4 or 5 items available in home, and you can teach everything. The most brilliant concepts in science. Science is simple. It is in life. Science is embedded in our life. That's important. Dinesh, if you're coming close, I wanted to just close with something which...
Thank you. I mean, just one remark here. Just a small effort from my side. We have created the small science kits and distributing it to kids in rural area. And a couple of companies are also helping us do this. So we will announce this soon among our teachers. We have several questions like Mr. Shishadri Kulkarni, Lalita, and a lot of people like
I'll write my email ID. You can ask me the questions and I will try to answer it, right?
Just wanted to acknowledge you questions here.
That's my email ID and you guys can just mail it. Right? So Dineshji, in the end, I wanted to just give you a note. Now I know that we're not physically present, but then you guys are great teachers, so you can take the oath wherever you are. That's a little lab, right? This oath, I didn't design it, but it was designed by none other than Dr. Kalam. So he was very, as you all know, very passionate about teachers, and he himself identified as a teacher. So on one of the Teachers' Day, he gave an oath, and I'm going to give you this oath, and I'll also copy it in the sidebar so that you can read it later. But I want you to take this oath, and we'll take 5 points of them, and then it's a 10-point oath, and you can do it later. And I hope we will live up to the values of the great teacher, Dr. Kalam, while we do that. Right? So I'm going to take that oath like a normal oath, and I know you can't speak, so you're all muted, but in your heart or in your room, you can do that. And it's not my oath, it's Dr. Kalam's oath. So it begins. First and foremost.
Just a minute. I just want to translate this. Now, okay. Oath ತಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ for benefit of teachers here. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಣೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಸ್ವೀಕರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಕಲಂ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿರುವ ಒಂದು ಮಾತು. ದಯಮಾಡಿ ತಾವು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಕೈ ಎತ್ತಿ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ವಚನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, I've written the first one. First and foremost, I love teaching. Teaching will be my soul, and teaching will be my life's mission. That's what Dr. Kalam said. Okay. Second thing he said, this is an oath, huh? He used to give it to so many thousands of teachers. Second point is, I realize by being a teacher, I'm making an important contribution to the efforts of national development. You can pick it up and read it, okay? Then, this one is very important, and I personally love this one most. I will consider myself to be a great teacher only when I am capable of elevating average student to the high performance and when no student is left out as a non-performer. Backbencher is your focus. If you can't elevate the backbencher, then you're not being a good teacher. It's very important to do that. And this one is also very important. I was talking. Okay. This one is, I will organize and conduct my life. My entire life I have to conduct in a way such that my life itself is a message to my students. You are being observed all the time. And then the last point I want to tell you is that this one, okay? It's the smallest one, but this one you must remember. I will always celebrate the success of my students. Okay? So that success, I wish you all the success. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Dinesh. And I was very happy to be with Tare Zameen Par. I wish you all the best for the future. You're doing a great job, and I'm absolutely thrilled, and we'll join again sometime. So,
thank you, sir. And thanks to Dr. Kalam, he has created a big star on the earth, and the star is giving us light today in form of Srijan Palji. Thank you so much. And I request, if you can send that, the lines that you just mentioned, I'd like to project it inside our dome for the every, teacher that we show our dome shows. And in addition to that, we'll print it in a big, this one, and, put it, and when you come to Bangalore next time,
yes.
to look at it in our office.
Great. Thank you. I've copied the.
Thank you so much.